Have you ever felt like you're standing slightly outside of life? Not disconnected, not depressed, just observing. You understand people. You see the patterns. You read between the lines. Yet somehow, you never fully belong inside the systems everyone else seems comfortable in. While others move easily from one role to the next, you feel like you're constantly translating yourself, dimming certain thoughts, holding back questions that feel too deep, too intense, or too inconvenient for the moment. You've been called too sensitive, too quiet, or too intense. You've learned to wear masks. You've learned to adapt. But when the noise fades, when you're finally alone, there's a familiar realization. You don't experience the world the way most people do. If this resonates, this video isn't here to tell you that you're better than anyone else. It's here to explain why some minds operate differently and why those differences often feel isolating. According to Carl Jung's psychological framework, a small percentage of people share a rare cognitive pattern, not a superpower, not a curse, a structure. Today, we're breaking down 7 signs that point to this rare psychological configuration and what it actually costs to live with it. Carl Jung believed that people don't just differ in personality traits, they differ in how their minds prioritize information. Some minds are built for action, some for structure, some for sensing the immediate world, and some are wired primarily for pattern recognition, intuition, and internal meaning. This video isn't a diagnosis, it's a framework. Many people will recognize pieces of themselves here. What matters is consistency over time, not occasional feelings. With that said, let's move to the first sign. The first sign is a contradiction that confuses everyone around you. You are deeply empathetic and unexpectedly detached. You don't just understand emotions intellectually, you absorb them. You can walk into a room and feel tension before a word is spoken. You sense discomfort behind smiles. You pick up on emotional undercurrents others ignore completely. But because this sensitivity is constant, your mind has learned to protect itself. When things become overwhelming, you don't explode. You withdraw, you go quiet, you become distant, you appear cold. To outsiders, this feels inconsistent. To you, it's survival. Your detachment isn't a lack of care. It's a boundary your nervous system learned to build. The second sign is the quiet frustration of knowing without proof. Your mind is constantly connecting dots in the background. You notice patterns, trajectories, and outcomes long before they're obvious. You meet someone and feel something is off without being able to explain why. You see projects fail before they collapse. Relationships end before the first cracks show. When asked how you know, you struggle to answer because the process wasn't logical step-by-step reasoning. It was subconscious synthesis. This often leads to dismissal. People call you pessimistic or overly cautious until time passes, and suddenly what you sensed becomes visible to everyone else. This is not prophecy. It's pattern sensitivity, and it often feels lonely to live 10 steps ahead. The third sign explains why social interaction drains you so deeply. You instinctively adapt. You read what the situation needs and become that version of yourself. With analytical people, you're analytical. With emotional people, you're supportive. With chaotic people, you stabilize. This isn't manipulation. It's unconscious attunement. But over time, the cost becomes clear. When you constantly adjust to others, you slowly lose contact with your own internal baseline. You leave interactions feeling hollow, not because they went badly, but because you weren't fully present as yourself. You were performing harmony. This leads to the fourth sign. People confide in you. They unload. They trust you with their deepest struggles. You listen. You advise. You support. But over time, something uncomfortable emerges. When you need support, the room is quiet. Not because people are cruel, but because few can meet you at the depth you naturally operate in. This creates resentment you rarely express, not anger, fatigue. You begin to realize that many people don't want to know you. They want to use your clarity. Your mind holds clear internal visions, how things could work, how systems should function, how people could behave with more awareness. But reality rarely aligns. This gap creates paralysis. Why begin something that will never reach the clarity you see internally? Why commit to relationships you already understand will disappoint? Your idealism isn't naivete. It's sensitivity to inefficiency and contradiction. But unchecked, it turns into withdrawal. Because you tolerate so much, people assume you always will. But you have a limit. When it's crossed, something shifts permanently. You don't argue. You don't seek revenge. You simply disengage. Emotionally, psychologically, completely. To others, this feels sudden. To you, it's the end of a long internal process. This is not cruelty. It's self-preservation. Finally, there's a quiet background feeling you rarely name. Not loneliness, separation. You crave depth that feels rare in everyday interaction. You want conversations that move beyond surface exchange. You want shared meaning, not constant stimulation. You can be surrounded and still feel alone. Not because others aren't valuable, but because few operate at the same internal altitude. If you recognized yourself here, understand this. Being psychologically rare doesn't make you superior. It makes you responsible. Responsible for boundaries. Responsible for grounding intuition in reality. Responsible for not hiding behind detachment. Misunderstood minds often turn inward or bitter. Integrated minds learn restraint, clarity, and discipline. The goal isn't to escape society. It's to understand your operating system well enough to function within it without losing yourself. If this framework helped you understand your mind more clearly, the next step isn't identity. It's mastery. Subscribe if you want depth, not labels.